Welcome to this week's Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson, and I'm here as always with Trade Martin and Bob Marks. This week's Harness Racing Alumni Show is sponsored by Winbak Farm Canada's newest stallion, Captain's Quarters. The son of Captain Treacherous is standing his first season with a stud fee of $5,000 Canadian. For more information or to book a breeding, call 905-838-2145 or email stallions@winbakfarm.com. Captain's Quarters. Also, the Meadowlands Racetrack. Visit playthemeadowlands.com. And Hunterton Farm, breeding champions year after year. Visit huntertonfarm.com. The Harness Racing Alumni is now currently soliciting for sponsors of our upcoming YouTube tribute to the drivers and trainers of Yonkers Raceway. Please visit ustrots.com to become a sponsor. All sponsors will also receive a plaque of honor on our digital honor board. Again, visit ustrots.com.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
Joining us is our good friend from Hunterton Farms, Steve Stewart. Steve, welcome back to the Harness Racing Alumni Show.
Glad to be back.
So Steve, you're in Kentucky. What's going on in Kentucky now?
Well, the only thing I can say is, which probably everybody else is saying, is when you watch the Oak Grove races, you say Kentucky has a lot of money to race for. It's amazing how much the purses are there and what opportunity it gives to the industry. It's really, when you think that they've only been in business for four years or so, and 5, whatever it's been. It's always longer than you think, but it's really remarkable what Kentucky's done, especially Oak Grove, with the money that they give to purses, and even the overnight purses is really amazing. You really have to tip your hat to Ken Jackson. He's done a really amazing job, in my opinion, in starting the new $500,000 race there in May, and then, but not only do you have those big races, but they have so many consolations and, really trying to spread the money around from top to bottom. You got to take care of the top end, and but the little guys always complain that they get the money, but boy, it seems like Oak Grove and a lot of the tracks in Kentucky really cater to and try to help all levels.
Has the handles improved over there?
It has. I think racing during the day and being Monday and Tuesday probably is. Our handles on every harness track is never as much as you want it to be, but my feeling is that we always want more. But as long as someone is trying and doing their best to make it better, that's all we can ask for. And I think that's what Oak Grove and a lot of tracks do. Some tracks don't, as we all know. So it is encouraging that they're making every effort to improve the handle, and it's a struggle. We've never. It wasn't that long ago that you didn't have sports wagering unless you wanted to bet with your bookie. So, there's just added competition, and it becomes harder. I'm still amazed at how much handle industry-wide is when you look at the USTA, that the purses are basically the same from last year, and the handle is not very – if it's down, it's not very far. That's for sure. So, to me, effort is the key, and when there's effort, I don't complain too much.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed was that with the fair races for the 2-year-olds, they went right into purses of $10,000 and didn't have to qualify, which surprised me.
Yeah, they really do everything. The state really does everything we can from top to bottom, as I said. And so obviously the purses at $40,000 and finals of $400,000 at the Red Mile or whatever. The good horses are all taken care of. But the one thing we realized that we also have to take care of the fair guys. There's 7 fairs in Kentucky and a final. And I remember when the money started coming in at a higher rate, I think the fair finals were, I think, 12,000, maybe 15, and now they're 50. And, you know, there was a debate, okay, do we only go to 25? My comment to the fair people was, ask for 50. And they were granted that. And that's what makes the difference. That's where you can actually take that 25,000 or 12,000 or whatever. A lot of your fair races or whatever, you're going to pay some bills, but that fair final or whatever is going to get you money to go buy a yearling. So, and that's what you're trying to do. What they came up with, which I thought was very creative, they said that what we'll do is, instead of trying to figure out what the purse will be, is it will be based on how many starters. So what they do is, if you notice, if you looked at the fairs, they will have, you know, some will go for, some will be five in a race, some will be 8 or whatever. And what they do is, which makes a lot of sense, they do $1,500 per starter. So consequently, if you have 6 starters or whatever, you go for $9,000. You know, so you can just do the math and see that you know, the more competition you have, the more money you get to race for. So I think basically in Kentucky, everybody gets a drink, and that's so important to keep everybody playing.
Yeah, correct. And now, how's the political scene going on in Kentucky?
I think it's very encouraging. You know, I mean, my drum beat over the last many years has been, you do what the thoroughbreds do. You stay with the thoroughbreds. You do everything you can to align yourself with the thoroughbreds. And back in the day when we had full cart simulcasting and you had Louisville Downs was still going and whatever, but they were fighting Churchill Downs and whatever, and guess what? When we were fighting them, we lost. And you will always lose when you fight against the thoroughbreds. I don't care what state it is. You will lose. You know, harness racing will lose. But we gained tremendously, and you saw it in New Jersey. You know, it wasn't just harness people at Trenton convincing the governor and making sure we get that appropriation money. We had Drazen at Monmouth, and you had all the thoroughbred connections there, you know, in lockstep with us to get the $20 million, 10 to them and 10 to us. And usually when we are aligned with the thoroughbreds, we win, and that's definitely what's happened in Kentucky. And so, you know, when they were debating on, you know, obviously the Kentucky thing started with instant racing or historical wagering. They didn't want to use, nobody wanted to use the catchphrase of slot machines. And so those were what those machines were called. And so they put them in Kentucky Downs first, and they're the flagship of the, you know, they bring in the most money of any track. And they're, just because they, similar to Oak Grove, are drawing from Nashville along the Kentucky border. So when they put them in, there was a debate, and those are slot machines, those aren't instant racing. So there was court battles or whatever, and it finally got down to going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled against the certain types of machines, but then they even came out and said, you know, this is your signature, this is our signature industry, and what you horse people need to do is go to Frankfurt, our capital, and just pass legislation that instant racing machines are legal. Instead of debating whether they're slot machines or not, just pass it. And so basically the thoroughbreds rallied or whatever. Quite honestly, I think Joe Costa did his part at the Red Mile, but basically it was a thoroughbred effort to convince the legislators, and it worked, and now we don't have that fight anymore. So, and it goes back to the same thing I concerned with HISA. Everybody wants to talk about, is HISA good, is HISA bad? And my opinion is, it doesn't matter what we think. You know, we can argue about Lasix and whatever, and it's interesting that we don't have Lasix in Kentucky, and I don't hear too many people saying I'm not racing. There's some horses that need it, but the vast majority don't. And but when we have, my approach with HISA is that if the thoroughbreds want it and think they need it or whatever, I think we have to be in lockstep with them, because I fear that if whenever we separate ourselves from the thoroughbreds, we lose. And I just worry one day that we don't have HISA, they do, and the animal rights people can come after us a lot easier by not having HISA. And because I know that's why HISA was born, was because of all the deaths of thoroughbreds at Santa Anita. That's how it all got started. And to protect and say, well, we're doing something. We're not just sitting back and letting horses die on the track. We don't have that problem. And I can see both sides of the argument, but I just worry that when you separate yourself from the thoroughbreds, bad things happen.
Correct. I've always said that. Work with the thoroughbreds, and they've done all the work for us. They've done all the research. They put all the money into the surveys and so forth. Follow their lead, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And I guess we got some big racing coming up now that the season's really taken off.
Yeah, our horse Apex is racing in the Stanley Dancer, but boy, what a card for on Saturday! But what a card for all the races. It's going to be this is the fun time of the year, that's for sure. The people stop talking about, the trainers can stop talking about the 2-year-olds and let the horses do the talking. And some of the talk is good, and some isn't as good as what the owners have heard. But you never know until they line up behind the gate. It makes and that's what racing is all about. We kind of know who we think is going to win, but until they cross the finish line, you never know. But yes, it's and the money that they race for is amazing. We just have to hope that everything works out okay with Mr. Gural and the Meadowlands. I know that he was definitely hoping to try to get a casino, but I guess that's on hold for maybe another year. And he knows, and everybody knows, you definitely don't need to put it on the ballot and it fails. That happened once before, and that's not a good look. So, I think they can do the polling and figure it out. But I think that when those casinos start going in Manhattan and in New York City or whatever, and draws all those people away from all the gamblers going across the bridge or through the tunnel to gamble, I just hope that the politicians and the populace of New Jersey will wake up and say that we got to take care of Atlantic City, but gosh, we can't just have that giant sucking sound taking all the tax money and giving it to New York.
Yeah, they're cannibalizing themselves.
Yeah, we understand there's only so many dollars bet, but you got to believe that there's an awful lot of millions of people in northern New Jersey that would love to, if they want to go to a casino, that they shouldn't have to pay the money to go through the tolls just to get to and go across Manhattan to get to Citi Field and all the different places, and Aqueduct or wherever that they're building them to gamble and leave it in the state and reduce maybe property tax or something or whatever. It seems like they have the argument, but I guess Atlantic City still has the thumb on the scale of New Jersey at the moment.
Right. Well, the other thing, I'm just looking at the calendar. Here we are. It's July 9th already. And pretty soon we're going to have the fall sales coming up. How does your 2026 crop look right now?
We really, I hesitate to say this because every breeder says it. We have a very, very good crop. And we've been very lucky, but, our eye is on watching our 2-year-olds race so well, and they're a lot of the ones, to me, you're only as good this fall. We're only as good as the ones we sold last year, and so when it's not very good when you have a mare that's and the catalog says the 3-year-old says now 3 or the 2-year-old says now 2, and they're not racing and whatnot. So the key to our success has always been the amount of horses that we get to the races and do well, and so far so good. It's just kind of in its infancy with the 2-year-olds, but we're off to a great start. But it's going to be interesting at Lexington because this year there's only going to be 4 days, so which I think is a big plus for pretty much everybody. I think it'll definitely keep the prices up. But I always say I hope they don't go up too high. I don't think that it's in the best interest. You don't hear too many breeders say that, but I say it year after year as I watch the prices just continue to go up, that it's not always the best thing for the industry, that we need to have the owners make money. And as anybody knows, the more they have to pay for a yearling, the harder it is to make money. And I think that the prices for the yearlings don't need to go up anymore, and for us to survive. And in a way, I hope they don't go up. And they didn't last year. They pretty much just kind of stayed the way they were. But we had a great sale, and I think anybody that had nice horses had a great sale. But I think they're going to be closer. They were in the 900s the last 4 or 5 years at Lexington. This year they're going to be in the low 800s, I hear. So I think that's going to be good. And the other thing that's going to happen at the Red Mile, which is I think even more change, is that because of the Scioto Downs racing starting the Breeders' Crown 1 week after our meet is over with, they decided, George Siegel is always smart, and decided that they're going to move the Kentucky Futurity to the first Saturday instead of the last year. So normally we finish our meet and sales and whatever with a bang, with the Kentucky Futurity being on the last day. This year it's going to be right in the middle, so that the 3-year-olds can not have less than a week to get ready for Scioto. And so that's going to be very interesting, that the Futurity for the first time ever will be before the sale. But I think that really makes it kind of interesting. People can come in on maybe Thursday or Friday, and all the big night at the sale is on Monday, and they can have 4 or 5 days in Lexington and really get a big bang.
Okay, that sounds good. Bob, you're awful quiet over here. Did you want to jump in and say something?
I've been following it very well. I think Steve is right on just about everything he's saying. I think Oak Grove is fantastic. Where they get the money, obviously that casino must draw a lot from Nashville, and that's wonderful. So, yeah, and as far, I'm looking forward. With our small amount of breeding stock, I think we have 7 yearlings to sell. I'm looking forward to a great sale this year. I think Steve is 1,000% right that the sales are going to hold up.
Yeah, my comment on the sales has always been that the standardbred industry is a very simple business. It's money in, money out. If our buyers see that the opportunity to make money continues to be there, that the money will be there for the yearlings. And I think that, it's a little bit different than the thoroughbreds. At their top end or whatever, you cannot justify, it's very difficult to justify a $1 million, $2 million, $4 million yearling. But, you're dealing with people that have so much discretionary amount of money that they're buying almost like they're buying art. In a way, it's not economic. I always tell people that the great thing about the standardbred business is almost all the time a standardbred will only sell for as much as someone thinks they can earn with that horse. And anybody outside the thoroughbred and standardbred industry says, well, why? Of course, that all makes sense, but when you get into the thoroughbred game, and even the show horses and where they win ribbons and whatever, there's not a lot of justification for the value of the horses. But in our business, I think, and that's what keeps me playing and a lot of people playing, is that we can justify our costs of the purchase price most of the time, and which is healthy.
Yeah, Steve, with the new tax laws that have just been put in place, that should drastically help the sales, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that it's a lot of the tax laws were just extended, that Trump just extended the tax laws. But yes, you definitely saw it much, much more in the thoroughbreds. The thoroughbreds have really increased the value of their bloodstock tremendously. I mean, it was every time you see the 2-year-old in trainings or the Keeneland sales or whatever, they're up 15-20% over the year before, and it wasn't too bad the year before. We have not seen that bump, and quite frankly, you're talking to one guy that's almost glad that we don't, because what happens when that happens is the stud fees go up, and the added cost or whatever, and then the brood mares cost so much more, so everything gets elevated. But you can see, even 2008, we didn't take the hit that they took when the bottom fell out of the economy and had the recession of 2008 and 2009. And it goes back to the original thing I said. Our horses are you can justify the value of, and I always said, everybody said, oh boy, the sales are going to be down. I said, well, as long as the Meadowlands pace still races and next year, and you have and it was the same thing at 9/11. Our sales were started 3 weeks after 9/11, and everybody was heading for the hills. But the sales held up fairly well in the standardbreds because of the fact that as long as the purse money is there, we can justify our costs. And as living in Kentucky, you can watch the not feast or famine, but the yo-yo or the roller coaster of the thoroughbreds, where they'll get way too high, and then not always the bottom falls out, but they have a tremendous correction. I remember, I'll let you go, but the funniest thing I ever heard was, I think it was 85 or 84, whatever, when they had the energy crisis, and the thoroughbreds were selling, and they really, I mean, it just took a hell of a hit. I don't know how far they were down. And somebody said, they said, well, how are you handling it? And well, he said, I'm still alive, and the only reason why I'm still alive was I went down to Kennedy Bridge on the Kentucky River, and I was going to jump off the Kentucky Bridge or whatever and kill myself after the sale was over with, but the line was too long, and I went home. So, but that's what they deal with a whole lot more. We look at the thoroughbreds with envy, but it's not as easy or whatever you want to say as it looks from the outside.
Yeah, then Naira's doing a good job working with the Meadowlands from what I can see, and they seem to be very cooperative, and they seem to be getting along extremely well from everything that I see and hear. Yeah, we all. It's frustrating to all of us that we don't work together as much as we should, and I just hope that we can continue to try to work together and within the states we all have and whatnot, and so we've lived long enough that Kentucky has bounced back. Back in the 80s, Cindy and I had to get a farm in New Jersey because all the stallions left Kentucky, and now it's kind of reversed itself. Steve, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's always a pleasure to be on the show, and hats off to you guys for doing this, and you're an important part of the industry, believe me. Thank you.
This week's Harness Racing Alumni Show is sponsored by Winbak Farm Canada's newest stallion, Captain's Quarters. The son of Captain Treacherous is standing his first season with a stud fee of $5,000 Canadian. For more information or to book a breeding, call 905-838-2145 or email stallions@winbakfarm.com. Captain's Quarters. Also, the Meadowlands Racetrack. Visit playthemeadowlands.com. And Hunterton Farm, breeding champions year after year. Visit huntertonfarm.com. The Harness Racing Alumni is now currently soliciting for sponsors of our upcoming YouTube tribute to the drivers and trainers of Yonkers Raceway. Please visit ustrots.com to become a sponsor. All sponsors will also receive a plaque of honor on our digital honor board. Again, visit ustrots.com. That's a wrap for this week's show. Thanks for listening, and please join us again next week.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show